Are you able to see something? Something is coming.
Your whole screen is visible.
My screen is visible.
Yes, sir. But you need to convert it in the PPT mode.
हाँ, तो PPT मैंने PPT दबाया है. हो जाएगा. Just 1 minute. PPT ही दबाया है. PPT. Why it is not coming opening? हाँ. ये कहाँ चला गया? Themes. ये तो का sign in कहाँ? नहीं. अच्छा, PPT is opening. हाँ, it is. Just a minute. PowerPoint. Now.
Yes, sir. Now it is visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Only thing, it is not full screen. How do you make it full screen? I think some of you should, younger people should help me.
The Control F.
Control?
F5.
Control कहाँ है? Control, which one? F1 or
F5.
F5. अच्छा, F5. Control F5. No, we detected a problem with Microsoft Audio Video.
Sir, it is a functional key F5. Functional key F5, sir. Functional keys.
Functional key. ये तो चला गया, कहाँ चला गया फिर? Save. Microsoft Auto Update. अरे, Auto Update अभी बंद किया. Join conversation. No, again file.
Sir,
No.
actually, sir, actually it will come the full screen means you will go with that bottom volume button is there, sir. Zoom button.
Bottom.
Bottom lower side, right side, lower side, sir. Volume zoom button is there, sir. Zoom option. Above that, sir.
Above that. No, this is preview. This is preview.
Not like that, sir.
अच्छा, छोटा वाला zoom.
छोटा वाला है the fourth option, sir. Fourth one.
Just a minute. हाँ. Yes, slideshow. It says slideshow.
Yes,
click on that, sir.
Slideshow. Has it become full screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Nice, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Okay. So today I am going to talk about bending a plate, which is a very important topic, and plate is a very important element. Again, structural element in there is some talk. Please mute your button. Don't unmute. Please keep it on mute. I mean, only I should be unmute. So all others, please mute your button so that there is no disturbance. So this is plate bending. I will tell you something about finite element formulation of plate bending. And I shall just I hope you are recording the lecture.
Yes, sir. It is recorded, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay. Because you record it so that in case anybody wants it, you can give it to them. Okay,
Sure, sir.
Okay. So the plate bending is a very important is a problem in solid mechanics, both in civil, mechanical, aerospace, all the three branches of engineering. What is a plate? First of all, what is a plate? So before I come to plate, I would like to know what is a beam. And before beam, I will say what is a rod.
You are muted. Your voice is not come.
हो जाता है, हम कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं. Yes. So now it is coming.
Yes, sir. Now it is come.
So I do not know how does it get on muted. Okay. So What is a rod? A rod is a simple element whose cross-sectional dimension, of course, there is nothing in this nature which is one-dimensional. Every element, every body is a three-dimensional object in this nature. So yes, out of these three, because we call them, one-dimensional, two-dimensional, and three-dimensional bodies on the basis of the size of the dimensions. So a rod is a member whose length is very one dimension, means that becomes length. One dimension is very long compared to the other two cross-sectional dimensions. So rod has a small cross-section, means y and z in the YZ plane, the cross-section is very small and x dimension is very large. So it is a rod. And this rod is subject to geometrical configuration of a rod is like this. And then what is the nature of force that acts on the rod? A rod can take only axial force. So the subjected to axial force in x direction. It can be tension, it can be compression. So that becomes the rod. Now, once you have axial compression or tension, deflection cannot be out of the plane. Everything will be confined to only x plane. So when we study a column or a tie rod or any tension member or any other compression member, column is a very important compression member in a multi-story building. Columns have to be specially cared for, because if one column fails, the entire building will fail. So column design is extremely important. Beam is not that important. Fails means only that beam will fail, and only on that floor there will be some issue and it can be rectified. But if column fails somewhere, let us say ground floor, one column fails, the entire building will collapse. So please be very careful about the design of column. So column, but then the deformation in the column is confined to only x direction, in one direction, along the axis. There is nothing out of the plane. Nothing in y direction, nothing in z. Now, what is a beam? Beam is also so column we call it one-dimensional member. Beam is also geometrically, it is like a column, one dimension. One dimension is very long compared to its other two directions. Then, in a beam, the cross-section, generally, we assume that cross-section has a symmetry about one plane. See, there will be y, xz plane, let us say, xz plane, it has a symmetry. And x direction, it has a long length. Xz plane, it is symmetry. And yes, xz plane, it has got a symmetry. So first of all, it is a symmetry about, it will have a symmetry about one plane. Symmetry means the beam will be, so a rectangular cross section, circular cross section, anyway, they always will have symmetry. But even other, like a triangular cross section or trapezoidal cross section, we will have to, in xz plane, it has a symmetry. Y direction, no, y not y. Xz, x direction and xz plane, it has a symmetry, means it will divide the beam or the cross section into two equal parts with mirror image. And then all the loads are applied not along the axis in a beam bending, but they are applied in xz plane, in the plane in the y direction. Sorry, in z direction, not y direction, in z direction. So the deflections are all confined to xz plane. It will deflect.
Sir, your screen is freeze.
Okay, no, the screen I have not changed. So let me.
Okay,
see.
sir. Then it.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Now it is work.
So this is for example a beam. XZ plane, it has a symmetry, and this cross section that you see, is it y? This is in x, and this is, of course, this is in x. Cross section I have not shown here, but cross section can be also a dumb shape or a triangle or any other shape, or a triangle like this or a vertical triangle. So everything is lying in xz plane. Therefore, it will have a deflection in Z direction, out of the plane. While in a rod, all the deflections were confined to X axis because the load was applied in X direction only. Here, the load is being applied in Z direction. Y is perpendicular to XZ in the going into the plane. Going into the plane is Y direction, and XYZ forms a right-handed screw system. And this is a load that is applied in a plane of symmetry, and then it deflects. So, but actually it is a two-dimensional because it has a depth. It has a depth and it has a length. So it looks like a 2D problem. Yes, beam actually is a 2D problem. All loads are confined in XZ plane, in one plane, in the same cross section. And we want to study the state of stress and at any point here, and that is shown here. At any point, I have taken, I think, some cross section here, this one, for example. So at any point P here, what will be the stress? What will be the stress? Yes, sigma x along the x-axis. Shear stress will be there at a distance z from the neutral axis. Let us say this is the neutral axis. So for at a distance z here, shear stress and normal stress will be there at a distance. So this is the status of a beam. And it bends. Beam bends because of the nature of the problem, because of the nature of the load. So it is a two-dimensional problem. It is a two-dimensional elasticity problem. Those of you who have learned, by the way, subject of basic elasticity or applied elasticity or theory of elasticity is very important in understanding all these subjects. So basic three-dimensional theory of linear theory of elasticity is essential. Which is the next level of course. It is also called advanced solid mechanics or advanced mechanics of solid. That is very important to understanding of these subjects. Okay. So this is beam, but the beam is a 2D problem. 2D, you have to, exact problem, you have to solve this as a elasticity problem, 2D, two-dimensional. But two-dimensional also is not easy to solve because you will get a partial differential equation in X and Z. So partial differential equations are always difficult to solve. We would like to convert the partial differential equation into an ordinary differential equation. So how do we do it? So beam, what we do, we try to transform this 2D problem to one-dimensional by subsuming the depth of the beam, everything into the neutral axis. Somehow we'll bring everything to neutral and we'll study the behavior of only the neutral axis. And then after having studied the behavior of neutral axis, we'll predict the behavior of any point within the depth at any cross section, at a particular cross section in a beam. So after knowing only we will study only the behavior of a simple line. So that is the process of reduction of 2D problem into one-dimensional problem. So beam is a theory of one dimension in which we reduce 2D problem to one dimension by assuming a displacement pattern through the depth. Assuming, because beam has a shorter depth, longer length. So I can assume, I can make some assumption regarding the displacement pattern through the depth and other assumptions. So that is how the first beam theory that got developed was because of Bernoulli-Euler way back in about 1750. So more than 1800, more than 250 years ago, Bernoulli-Euler theory. So because two-dimensional problems were difficult to solve, so they somehow said, okay, let us make some assumptions through the thickness of the variation of displacement. Sometimes you can also make assumptions regarding variation of stresses through the thickness. But that is a difficult, so this is the distinction between the two types of assumptions. If you make an assumption on displacement, we call that method as displacement-based method. If you assume a stress pattern, then we call it a stress-based method. Now, stress-based methods are difficult to implement. Okay, although we can derive the equations, there is nothing wrong, but then they are difficult to implement. So that is how in literature you'll find displacement-based methods are more popular. And in fact, 98% of the total mechanics of solids is based upon displacement-based assumption. Has it gone? I think, hello? Hello?
Hello.
My screen is gone?
So your screen is visible, but something else has come. Instead of the beam structure, something
Then
else
Chrome
has.
window is come.
Huh? How it has gone, I do not know. On its own, it went.
So your internet Chrome window is coming here instead of the.
Yes, yes. I also see internet Chrome has come, but it all happened automatically. I didn't do anything. Oh, God.
I think you need to minimize the Chrome window, then the PPT will visualize, because PPT is behind it.
Okay. It is behind it. Yes, you are right.
Yes, sir. Now it is visible.
Okay, you can hear me also. So two-dimensional problem is reduced to one-dimensional by making assumption through the thickness about the displacement pattern in the z direction, and that is how we call all the beam theories are one-dimensional problem. Because one-dimensional problem will be easier to solve, so we study the behavior only of the neutral axis, and based upon the behavior of the neutral axis, we can predict, because whatever you have assumed initially, we can go back and then predict the displacement and stress it at any point through the depth. So this is idea. Now, as opposed to this, you graduate from beam came. Now you have a next problem that is a three-dimensional. I say, can you, just a minute, 1 minute. 1 minute, something has fallen. This is there. Just see whether you can see this. I hope my, yes, it is visible. I think my camera is, can you see this? Notebook?
Yes, sir.
Notebook? It is a notebook.
Yes,
It is a
Yes,
notebook.
sir, it is visible.
It is a notebook having about 100 or 150 pages. It has some thickness, two dimension, X and Y, and thickness direction, which is small, is a notebook. So I put it horizontally. I do not know if you can see. So this notebook is a three-dimensional body. The beam, in a beam, y direction was very small. Now y direction is very wide. Very wide. X dimension also and y direction also it extends. Same thing, if you extend this, whatever you are seeing in the case of beam in X direction, it is also similar in y direction. Then it is really a three-dimensional problem. And if you load it on the transverse in the Z direction, then this plate will deflect. It is called a plate. A plate is a two-dimensional object, two-dimensional body, whose one dimension is very small compared to the other two, X and Y, they are very large, but Z direction is very small, and then it is loaded transversely. Transversely means transverse to the plane. Then it will deflect, it will bend. So plate is a two-dimensional materialization of a beam. First you understand beam, and then you go to plate. So plate is a very important element. Again, it is a three-dimensional body. One idea is blindly, if you want to study beam, then you have to take a plane stress problem because loads are in the same, and use any two-dimensional element like a triangular or a rectangular element and fill this area, and then you can do the finite element analysis. But that is a very crude method. If you have developed a beam theory, then you have to discretize only the length x. Similarly, in the plate, if I want to study plate, then I will have to use a three-dimensional brick element everywhere throughout the this, which will be very crude method, and very number of elements will be enormous. Now, if I can get rid of the thickness, just like in the beam, I have subsumed the thickness into only the neutral axis. So similarly, there is a mid plane of this plate in between the top and bottom surface. So I will subsume the thickness in the mid plane of the plate, and I will study the behavior only of the mid plane. And how do we do this? By assuming something, some variation of displacement through the thickness. And that is how there are so many theories of beams and plates, because everybody has assumed or improved from the original assumption of Bernoulli-Euler. So based upon the assumption, you can go on improving better and better theory. You can go on getting better and better theory. So Euler-Bernoulli beam, for example, how do we get the displacement field? See, we assume that xz, u at any point xz, displacement in u direction, that means x direction, but the point is xz, point P, at any point P whose coordinate is x and z, the displacement in x direction can be written like this, approximated like this. This is approximate. U of only x-axis. That is extension or compression of the only neutral axis plus z times the rotation of the transverse normal. This one is nothing but rotation of the vertical normal. Du by dz gives you a rotation. Rotation multiplied by z will give you the. So I can assume, and then here you see on the left hand side you have 2 dimensions. On the right hand side you have only 1 dimension. Z has come out by this thing. And W we assume xz at any point, because z also in z direction also we are assuming that at any point P the displacement can you please
Participants, please unmute yourself.
Can you please mute your okay,
Please
so
mute
this is
yourself.
okay, so Wxz will be, see, we assume here that in the entire thickness, you take any point in the thickness direction, but they will have the same displacement in z direction. That means the vertical line, vertical normal is a rigid line. It does not make, you take P at the neutral axis or a P at any distance z, both will have the same displacement. So this was the basic assumption, and based upon, because the beam was assumed to be thin, beam was assumed to be a slender member, so it was assumed like this. And this is the assumption on which Bernoulli-Euler theory is based. We can write this in more concisely like this. Instead of this one, some rotation about in y direction, vertical, this is actually in y direction. Rotation, if you take the vector, it will be in y direction, rotation. So u plus z times rotation. So there will be extension plus there is a rotation, and that will give you. So this can be written simply like this, and similarly w can be written like w naught. So this is the way we reduce the 2-dimensional problem to 1 dimension. Then we write the after fixing the displacement field, then we write down, we go to the strains, and strains from theory of velocity, normal strain, axial strain is du by dx, so that becomes like this, and shear strain is du by this one, so that comes out to be this. We assume here in a classical beam theory that the shear strain in the xz plane is 0. Gamma xz is 0, not shear stress. We assume that shear strain is 0. So that gives us, because if you set this equal to 0, you get a relationship between rotation and dw naught by dx. So rotation of the normal, how does the transverse normal rotate? And then this is dw by dx is the slope of the tangent which it makes with the x-axis. dw naught by dx is the slope of the tangent that the tangent to the curve makes with x-axis. So that is a plus minus. It is because of the sign convention. We can describe this. I mean, I have no time to explain this right now, but we can explain this. Now, this derivation or this displacement field of beam, it causes actually second derivative of W, because this is now theta becomes derivative of W. So if you substitute it here, epsilon x becomes second derivative z times minus d is second derivative of W naught by dx square, second derivative. And that if you write down the energy expression, potential energy means energy, external energy. Energy expression will contain second derivative of W, and in order to estimate second derivative, you need continuity of dW, one derivative less. Second derivative means one derivative less must be continuous, and such a formulation or theory is called C1 continuous. So all our displacement field must be C1 continuous. So C1 continuity is required. So we call such finite element based upon such formulation as C1 continuity formulation. And C1 continuity formulation in finite element are not very easy to implement, because the shape function that we assume in a element that becomes difficult to obtain. So okay, so this is so in a classical beam theory, what are the non-vanishing stresses and strain? There is a sigma x, tau xz is there, tau xz is there, and since gamma xz is 0, so there is only one. So these are the two stress quantities, and this is the one strain quantity which is present. And this is what before deformation your beam in the longitudinal cross section. This is the neutral axis. This is a transverse normal. Transverse normal means thickness. And this is, so there is a 90-degree maintained between neutral axis and the vertical transverse normal, thickness direction, 90-degree maintained. Now after deformation, they will look like this. Any cross section at any place, it is a general dx at any distance x. So here, since we are assuming that gamma xz is 0, this transverse normal will always be 90-degree to the deformed x-axis. To the deformed x-axis, it will always be normal. So this angle is 90, because gamma xz we have assumed to be 0, and rotation is dW naught by dx. There is one we got. There is a relationship, and that led to what is called C1 continuity in the theory, because in the strain energy you will need second derivative, and in order to compute second derivative, continuity of first derivative is needed, and such a formulation is called C1. And C1, as I told you, that C1 shape functions are difficult to obtain, so we should avoid C1. This is what I am saying. So Bernoulli-Euler theory is not good for finite element formulation. Now, when we go to second, I think, let me see how this was removed, how this was. So this was a big issue when finite element came. Earlier, whatever was there in the Timoshenko, see, Timoshenko is a father of our mechanics, solid mechanics. So whatever was there in Timoshenko book, people just took that equation and tried to formulate finite element equations. And whatever was there in Timoshenko book was this Bernoulli-Euler beam theory. And so Bernoulli-Euler we studied, and then we found, so Bernoulli-Euler model because gave us C1 continuity, and C1 continuity, as I told you, the C1 continuity is to be avoided. And now Timoshenko beam, later on in the book of, I think it is in Vibrations book, Vibration Problems in Engineering by Timoshenko, if you read, there is one chapter, beam theory with shear energy, shear deformable beam. So that he derived. It is Arhen has actually recently it has come that it was not singly derived by only Timoshenko, because there was one more person involved in that derivation. His name is Ehrenfest. 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 He was also a scientist around that time, and he worked along with Timoshenko, and both of them jointly derived the basic equations of beam theory, which included shear energy. And that, of course, we all know by Timoshenko beam, but now we should call it Timoshenko Ehrenfest beam theory. That is what I have decided to call, because it has. There is a book also which has come recently. That this was. We must give credit to everybody. Whoever is involved in the derivation of anything, anything, you should not miss out. So history should be known. So here we don't make the first derivative contains only the first derivative of W1 rotation. So what he did not make shear strain 0. Both of them, what they did, they said, let the beam have shear. And so shear energy, shear gamma xz was not made equal to 0. So that gave rise to an additional variable, that is both W0 and theta. While in Bernoulli-Euler, there was only one independent variable, that is W0. Now it is W0 and theta. But now the formulation turned to C0, because now in the energy expression, you will have only first derivative. And first derivative means continuity of only one derivative less. That means basic variable must be continuous. And it is easy to assume a continuous field for the basic variable. So C1. So it transforms C1 to C1 to C0. That helped. And then people realize that finite element with C0 is a simpler method of formulation than C1. And that is how we now say that C1 formulation is not a good formulation for finite element. It should be, generally, you should ensure that it is a C0 formulation. So all the earlier theories that were used, and because it was there in the Timoshenko book, without realizing, people have used it, developed it, finite element, and number of finite elements have been developed. And all those finite elements now have been proved to be defective. And now we don't use those. We use a different theory. Like in a beam, I have already told you, beam. Now, similar to beam, in a plate, when you go to 3 dimension, and as I explained to you, that is we
Sir, you have unmuted yourself by mistake.
Okay. Yes, please go on. I do not know how it happens, but it happens. Yes, thank you. So please keep me posted about mute and mute. So then this one, Euler-Bernoulli. So in a plate, when you go to the 2-dimension plate or 3-dimensional problem, because 3-dimensional problem is reduced to 2-dimension in the case of plate. In order to reduce the 3-dimensional problem, which is difficult to solve, we reduce it to plate problem, which is 2-dimension, by assuming some assumption, by assuming some displacement field in thickness direction. And in shell also, curved plate is a shell. Curved plate is a shell. Okay? Elastic shell is nothing but a curved plate. You make a curvature to the plate and then apply load transverse to the surface. It becomes a shell. And shell is a more stable, more resistance to load becomes increases, etc., because of axial force there, because of membrane force that comes in picture. So shell. Now all the 3 are similar. So in all the 3, thin beam, thin plate, thin shell, all of them are based upon the same assumptions. Only thing, it is a dimension. In beam, it is 1 dimension. In plate, it is a 2 dimension. In shell, also, it is 2 dimension. So we always, thin means what? H by L is very small. Thickness by length is very small. In a plate, what we say, there, if there are 2 dimension A and B, so we take the smaller one. Let A is smaller than B, and then H by A is small, we assume. And in a shell, we take the ratio of thickness to radius of curvature at that particular point. So radius of curvature and thickness, this ratio H by R is small. So we assume, I mean, then we call them thin. Thin beam, thin plate, thin shell. Now, once you have this thin, then perhaps you can make use of these theories. Euler-Bernoulli, Poisson-Kirchhoff, and Love. Love is a single name, you know, A-E-H Love. His full name is A-E-H Love. 3 initials. British man. He's from England. And there is also a book by Love. So cell theory, he developed the basic equations of cell, behavior of cells. So when I go to, you know, in Viva Voce or something, I always ask, you know, who are the pioneers in all this? Unfortunately, our boys and girls these days, they are not studying properly. They don't go to the history. They just derive whatever is required for their thesis work. And without knowing, you know, from where the theory started, what has happened, and they hardly, you know, I don't get answers. I don't get answers. Hardly anybody gives me answer that cell was developed by Love. Our plate theory was initially developed by Poisson-Kirchhoff. Or Kirchhoff also, simply, let us say somebody. There was one more person involved in plate, Germain, Germain. She was a lady before Poisson, but her contribution was less so. But then it is a Germain, Poisson, Kirchhoff, 3 persons involved, you know, initial years of 1830 to 1850. This development had happened. So it is again 1830. See, beam 1700 something. So after about 100 years, plate theory came in 2 dimension. And plate theory came 2 dimension, and then is from 1830 to 1800. So now we are nearing 1800, 2020, 190 years. So already around 200 years have passed, even after plate theory. And shell theory came around, exactly, I don't remember now. Love first derivation is, I think, 1878 or something. 1800, around 80. 1880. So Love also is quite old, you know. So these people were, you know, very great people, you know, who could think about reduction of. So all these problems are basically reduce the dimension of the problem. And they are all based upon the assumption that tangential displacement U, or U and V in the plate, they are linearly distributed through the thickness. First of all, they vary linearly. Transverse shear strains are neglected. So if it is 1 dimension, this XZ, and if it is 2 dimension, XZ and YZ both are 0. We assume this. So shear strains, transverse shear strains are 0. In many books, it is written shear stress is 0. Or when I ask the student, they will say shear stress, sir, shear stress is 0. There's a lot of difference between telling shear stress and shear strain. Shear strain is 0. Okay. And we also assume, because WXZ equal to W naught, which is a function of only X, not Z. So that means there is no transverse normal strain. Epsilon Z is 0. Okay, epsilon Z is 0. In all, beam, plate, and shell, all these are common. And one more assumption we make, that is that we assume that the transverse normal stress, that is sigma Z, is a small compared to other stresses. This quantity is small. Sigma Z is small compared to other stresses. Means, in fact, what is there? What is there other stresses? Sigma X is there in the case of beam, tau XZ is there. In the case of plate, it is again sigma X, sigma Y, tau XY. Yes, tau XY, tau XZ, tau yz. So all the 5 quantities are there. So this quantity is small compared to this. This we also assume in all the theories in order to simplify the Hooke's law. Hooke's law is simplified because of that. So please remember the basic assumptions that are, and in all this, because we are assuming shear strain, so this normal does not remain now 90 degrees to the middle plane or neutral axis. There is an additional angle here. Total rotation from vertical, this total rotation is more than 90, or it can also be less than 90 depending upon the situation. So this additional angle, change in right angle, is called shear angle. So this angle is gamma, or we define it also by another Greek notation phi. So there is an additional shear angle here. Okay. So I'm still on the basic theory. So limitation of the Kirchhoff, it is not only Kirchhoff, but all this. I mean, Bernoulli, Euler, Kirchhoff, Poisson, Love, everything. What is the limitations? Transverse shear deformability of the structural element is, there is no transverse energy included. So especially this has become very important in fiber reinforced composite laminate. There is no fiber reinforced composite laminate which is because there is shear energy enormous there. So this is not accounted. So please do not have any FRC, fiber reinforced composite element, without shear energy. If somebody is deriving that based upon Poisson-Kirchhoff theory or Bernoulli-Euler beam theory or Love theory, I would say now it should not be done. You must include shear energy. You must at least include shear energy, means you must take Timoshenko beam, or you must take the modified. See, the next theory which came including shear energy was Mindlin theory, Mindlin and Reisner theory, Mindlin plate. And in Timoshenko and in cells it is Reisner theory. Reisner also included shear energy. So, and the reason is, so this is one is practical application. See, all fiber reinforced composite laminates, all functionally graded material, functionally FR, fiber functionally graded material, functionally FG, or functionally graded FGM, yes, FGM. I think very popular term, FGM material, functionally graded. Material properties vary through the thickness. Material properties vary through by some law. So that has become functionally graded. But before that, it was number of layers joined together to form the thickness. So it was called layered composite material, and each layer was an orthotropic layer, and then they were all joined together. So that is, you must include shear energy. And the reason is that because it leads to this first derivative, and which converts the finite element formulation into C1 continuous, and it is difficult to construct 2 dimension, especially in the case of 1 dimension. At least we have a Hermite polynomial. Beam का derive कर सकते हैं. In 2 dimension, it becomes very difficult, and that is why there are so many elements. Right from beginning, right from 1960 onwards, plate up to 1975, 15 years, people were only using this C1 type, without realizing that that theory is not good for finite element. Only after 1974-75, people realized that we must abandon this and go to C0 formulation. So now remarks which are very important. Popular displacement-based formulation now always include shear energy. There is always transverse shear strains consideration, shear energy in the formulation. And this is not because that shear deformation effects are you analyzing a thick or a fiber reinforced composite laminate or thick beam or thick plate or thick shell. It is not only, the reason is not only this, because in all this thick and composite shear energy is important, but it is also mainly because the resulting formulation which enables simple interpolation function and which leads to C0 formulation. So this is what is the reason for this change. So classical Poisson-Kirchhoff plate theory regards C1 continuity. C0 continuous finite element interpolations are easily constructed. Multi-dimensional C1 interpolations are difficult and tedious to construct. Considerable ingenuity was required. To develop C1 continuous elements, resulting in there are so many elements of plates which were developed right from 1960 to 1975, and most of these elements are defective. They lack something or other, and the results are not converging. So these were the problems. So since mid-70s, I have written here very clearly, mid-70 means 1975, there is a turning away from Poisson-Kirchhoff theory, means Poisson-Kirchhoff for plate, or for Euler-Bernoulli for beam, and Love for shell. I should include now, improve upon this, include all the, because, and for a plate, yes, we use now what is called Reissner-Mindlin, basically Mindlin theory, displacement-based. Reissner theory is a stress-based theory. Stress. Reissner did some work in 1945, and Mindlin gave a theory displacement-based similar to Timoshenko beam for 2 dimension in 1951. So we use Mindlin, but anyway, we give credit to Reissner also because he did similar, something in 1945 before Mindlin after 6 years. And this leads to C1 continuity, and our difficulties are. But then, see, you always you solve a problem and remove some difficulties, and as it happens in life, you think that yes, now life will be comfortable, life will be happy. Now we have won the war, and then you realize, oh, it is leading to some other problem. So there is some new problem that is that is because of energy, shear energy being there. There is a phenomena called locking that happens nowadays. So element has to be lock free, but a shear energy based element gives what is called locking phenomena. I will explain what is locking phenomena. And it also leads to another problem that is called zero energy. That means there is some deformation without energy mode, rigid body modes. It gives you extra rigid body modes. So the body will deform, the plate will deform without consuming any energy. So it is called zero energy mode. Zero is spurious. Spurious, just like spurious drugs, spurious zero energy modes. So these are the two issues that has to be fought after this. But anyway, these have been done very successfully. So people are now happy with this. So what is a plate? So I have taken out an element in a plate, 2-dimensional X and Y. So this is the mid surface of the plate, and this is a plate in the 3-dimensional body. It's a 3 dimension. The thickness is h by 2 from the middle surface at any distance z. I have drawn this small strip at a distance z, and state of stress is sigma y here, sigma yz here, and yx here, and here sigma x, and then tau xy and tau xz, and similarly on the other negative planes. So this is the state of stress, and the load is applied on the top surface, px, py, pz, transverse load. It can be applied both on the top or bottom surface. It can be applied. So this is the nature of element. Now this, when we are talking of this is 3 dimension. Stress varies through the thickness. So at any strip, I have said at a distance z, but then this z can be anything from top to bottom. So it is a 3-dimensional. Now in 2 dimension, because I want to reduce this problem to 2 dimension. So what we do? We integrate the stresses and put the integrated value of stresses on the middle plane. So after integration sigma x, for example, through the thickness, I get what is called nx. After integrating tau xy through the thickness, I get nxy. After integrating tau xz through the thickness, I get qx. So these quantities are called stress resultants. Stress resultant, integrated values of stresses through the thickness per unit width, per unit width. These are all per unit width, width per unit. So, and they are put on the middle surface, and then subject to that, we study the behavior of this plate. Of course, in the process, the three-dimensional problem is reduced to two-dimension, and we study the behavior only of the middle plane, not a three-dimensional body. So that helps. So plate means, similarly, these stresses will also give rise to moments, which will be, because sigma x at any distance z, sigma x into dz multiplied by unit will give you a force, force multiplied by z will give you a moment. So for example, this one is mx, sigma x, the moment. Because of sigma x and tau xy, you will get a moment like this. So these are also all acting on the plane. So you get both forces and moments, stress resultants, and they are all put on the middle surface. Now this is what I have taken the positive direction of my W naught is positive in Z direction. My rotation here, yes, I have taken a vector approach here. Vector approach means, at least in finite element it will be without any problem, because you can add everything properly. So my rotation theta x is along x-axis. Rotation about positive x-axis means screw must move in x direction positive. So that is theta x. Theta y is along y direction. Rotation. U naught is displacement is this. V is displacement is positive. So this is the sign convention. And the displacement field through the thickness, based upon this displacement field, I can assume like this. I am not assuming here, just for simplicity, I am not assuming here in plane behavior. That means U naught, V naught, which can be included, but just for, because U naught, V naught is a simple thing. Membrane action in the plate. Most important is the bending. Bending means Z times rotation. So now Z times this rotation, theta y. Now many derivation, we also use theta x, but then you have to know what is theta x. What is the definition of theta x? There the definition will be different. Now the way I have shown here, theta x, theta y. See rotation. So this is along x-axis. The rotation will be theta y. That will be causing U displacement. And in about V direction, it is the rotation theta x. V direction means this. A displacement in this, displacement from here to here will be caused by a rotation theta x. And since I have taken this positive in this direction, and this rotation has to be positive in order to give a positive displacement in y direction, so a negative sign. And since the transverse normal is assumed to be rigid, so this z doesn't matter here, every point. So this is the basic displacement for bending a plate with this assumption. And now let us call this UVW as, instead of defining them as vertical, U as a vertical UVW, I have put them horizontal to save space, and I have put transpose here. This T means transpose here. So it is a vertical vector U. Similarly, U bar means middle surface quantities. Middle surface quantities are, what are the middle surface quantities? Rotation theta x, theta y, and W naught. So they are written in a, now you have to define, you have to decide right in the beginning what is the order you are following. I normally follow this order: W naught, theta x, theta y. It can be, because all the derivation will depend upon this. After fixing your displacement, you go to strains. Strains are a simple matter, du by dx. So d theta y by dx. This rotation with respect to x is nothing but curvature in xz plane. So I am writing here kappa x, kappa, because epsilon x means it is in xz plane. Xz plane kappa x. Similarly, this one is minus d theta x by delta y. Total thing I am calling it kappa y. So this is, and gamma xy, that in plane shear. Please note that this is in plane shear, not shear transverse. This is called in plane shear. This is out of plane shear. Now out of plane shear used to be made zero in the case of Poisson-Kirchhoff theory or Euler-Bernoulli beam theory. Now we will not be making it equal to zero. Will be not. So all these are derived here. I am calling shear, this angle is shear, phi x. So this total is phi x and this is total phi y. This shear angle is phi y. This is in xz plane, this is in yz plane. So that must be. So be consistent in derivation. Derivation has to be, you cannot be very casual and careless. See, this is a mathematics, systematic mathematics, and it is hard work. You have to do it on a clean paper, understand every quantity, then only you can do. Don't take it blindly, something from some book and something else from some other book, and try to mess up the whole thing. Just one minute. हाँ इधर कर लो. हाँ कर लो. इतना. Yeah. Incidentally, this derivation that I am telling you is not there in any book. A similar derivation I have done in a paper that we wrote way back in 1990. You can see it on my website. It is there, both paper as well as its PDF copy. There are three authors. My student was one Butalia, T.S. Butalia. T.S., please note it down, T.S. Butalia. Second author is mine, and there is another colleague of mine who was also involved, V.D. Dixit. So there are three authors, and the paper appeared in Computers and Structures. I think it is something, title is something like bending of rhombing plates, rhombic, any configuration plate. And there we have given a similar derivation that it is not yet come in any book. Most of the books have, classical derivation of either shear energy zero, C1 formulation. The only book that is closest to this is by, what is that green book or red book? Plesha, Cook, R.D. Cook. Okay, please see the book by R.D. Cook. R.D. Cook and Plesha, Plesha. Okay, so that is the closest that comes to this derivation. Other books, there will be difference. And this is the latest derivation that I can think of. So after doing this strains, we can put them, properly, in proper matrix form. So I define the bar quantity means mid surface quantity, mid plane quantities. Anything bar means they are defined on the mid plane. So all the kappas are defined on the mid plane. So this is bending strain. It is a kind of bending strain. Kappa means curvature. Similarly, these are the shear strains, phi x and phi y. So I call it epsilon s. And the total is this bending, and then the shear. Total strain is there. Now, total strain displacement relationship can be written in a longhand like this. And that we always define like LU. L is the operator, which is given in Zinkevich book. And I'm sure yesterday you must have learnt. Otherwise, you tell me, I can also cover this little later whenever you have time. So then this is L. L is the operator matrix, derivative matrix multiplied by the mid-surface displacement. There are three quantities U bar. And they can be also, sorry, I can separate this into two parts. These days, the total is strain quantities because, after we got this problem of shear locking phenomena, then we find that it is the shear energy which causes problem. Shear energy. It is the shear energy which causes problem. On my screen, I'm getting people are waiting in the lobby. I do not know what it means. I think some people want to join the lecture or something. People are waiting in the lobby.
Yes, sir, we will join them.
So anyway, allow them to join so that. Okay, so this can also be bifurcated, or you can take a submatrix. So this is the bending, shear, bending, and this is the shear part. So we also define this is the LB top and LS. We can define them separately. So this is possible. Then we find out total potential energy. Total potential energy pi is given by strain energy minus work done by the loads. And that can be written like this. Strain transpose sigma PV is give you the strain energy, and work done by body forces. B is the body force and U is the displacement of any point, UVW. So U transpose B, Bx, By, Bz with the volume we will give you, and there can also be some surface tractions. We can have that energy. This I have explained there, and it is there in the notes. So we find out the strain energy. So we start from 3 dimensions. There, see, most important thing is you must understand the process of reduction of 3-dimensional problem to 2-dimensional. So we start from energy, UB, bending energy, which is 3-dimensional. See, there is integral volume, sigma x, these three will cause you bending energy. Then we substitute these because we have already assumed these quantities. We already assume our displacement. So that gave rise to Z was taken out. And we have got some new quantity which is Z outside and then kappa. Now these are all 2-dimensional quantities. Sigma only is 3-dimensional quantity. So here now substitute it. So we have got a still volume. Then I substitute, I rewrite this in a particular way. dV can be written as dA multiplied by dz. So dA is 1. Z dz you take it inside. dz. dV is dx, dy, dz. dx, dy you please take it outside. Please take dz inside. Then here I am getting all the quantities which are functions of z. Sigma x, z, dz. Sigma x, z, dz. I separate. Integrate through thickness. Kappa x is a 2-dimensional quantity, so that can be kept over area. So now, see, from 3 dimension, now I have come theory. And what is this quantity? Integration of stress through the thickness. This defines my stress resultant. So, for example, this is my mx. This definition is by mx. So, it comes, the definition of mx, moment due to sigma x, which is confined or which is there on x on the mid surface. mx. Similarly, my comes this my, and this is tau mxy. So these are the three. So now you see here the entire expression is 2-dimensional. Now I don't have z is subsumed. Z dimension is subsumed in m, my, mxy. So now the problem has been reduced to 2 dimensions. That means now I will study only mid surface, only 2-dimensional element, not 3-dimensional element. So this is the great beauty of this derivation and plate theory. beauty of plate theory is that three-dimensional problem can be studied with certain assumption, approximating assumption as two-dimensional. Beauty of Bernoulli-Euler theory or Timoshenko beam theory is that instead of two-dimensional problem, which is a complex problem, we can study beam as a one-dimensional problem. And because one-dimensional problem is ODE, two-dimensional problem is from three-dimensional PDEs to two-dimensional PDEs. So two-dimensional PDEs are simpler to solve than, obviously simpler to solve than three-dimensional. So your mathematics part becomes easier. Similarly, I can find out now in which all these quantities are already defined. So you have no problem. Similarly, we get strain energy. Shear strain, transverse shear strain energy is start from a three-dimensional definition. You get this. Gamma x z, I told you already, I have defined it by phi x. This is phi y. Here there is no z. Z quantity is not coming. So let me take this z. So this inside. But this itself gives me a force, a vertical force. This gives me xz, qx. So qx is defined. So this is also a stress resultant. Phi x, qx, phi y, qy. And similarly, this can be written in contractual notation because I have defined what is epsilon s and sigma s in the previous slide. So this is what is this qx, qy. So like this. The total strain energy now is looking like this. Total bending and shear is looking like this. And now sigma can be related to again strain by constitutive relation, which we call bending modulus of elasticity multiplied by the stiffness. So this is a D matrix. That can be written like this. Similarly, here ds shear stiffness, material stiffnesses can be written. And finally, the work done. Work done is only if it is only transverse load. So work done is this, which can be written like this. So, and I have defined these quantities like this. So there is a lot of, see, it is a matrix. See, finite element and matrix method systematize the theory. Basic theory, before finite element came, we wrote all the basic equations of theory of elasticity into matrix form. So it became some matrix methods. Now that time the idea of finite element was not there. So first was matrix method. So matrix method was used for the total analysis. When finite element came, so then the total analysis got converted into analysis of elements and then summation of elements to form the total. Instead of doing the total, we divide the problem into number of elements and we do the analysis only of the element, and then we sum all such elements to form the total. And that is called assembly process. And then we solve the same problem. So this is what has happened. But this is a very systematic method, that the total domain can be subdivided. You do the mathematics only over element, which is a simpler element, simpler geometry. Everything is simpler. Total geometry is very complicated, but you can always add and subtract, and you please do the summation, and then you do the same thing. So what is equilibrium now? After doing the finding out this pi, equilibrium is nothing but minimum potential energy basic principle, or principle of minimum potential energy, which says at equilibrium, if you give the body a small virtual displacement at equilibrium, then the work done by this small displacement must be set equal to 0 in order to ensure equilibrium. Because if you make it finite, that means the body has moved by a finite difference or a finite displacement. We don't want equilibrium means body must remain stationary, no change in its position. So you assume some displacement, virtual displacement, that is why we call virtual, some del quantities, and then you find out the work done, and then you equate them to 0, which is also becomes a virtual work principle. So this is what is there. we make use of this virtual work principle or minimum. This is all for linear response, linear analysis. For non-linear, of course, you will have to do something slightly in a different way. But then first you have to master the linear. Constitutive relation. After having done this, you must define your material. Now, until 1960, the material that was available to all the researchers or even in the field or even in the industry was only isotopic material. One constituent material, either wood or steel or aluminum. This is what up to 1960, the situation throughout the world was same. It was only from 1960 that this concept of layered material came, composite material came, that yes, we can have a layer which can, orthotropic material came, material can be orthotropic. And it all happened because of the development of composites, that we can join two material into one and fabricate a sheet. And once you have fabricated a orthotropic sheet, that can be joined together by changing the orientation, so you'll get multi-layered thickness, and that is used for structural analysis. So anyway, so this is how we start with the stress has to be related to strains, and by this modulus of elasticity, modulus of shear, and total can be E. All this you already, many of you must be knowing, but go through this derivation. And for isotopic material, we can write it like this. But for other material, you have to take it as, from the experiments, the quantities that are there. And then this is stress resultant, because here now we are not dealing with stresses. See, there is no, I always, even many students, even teachers, they don't know the distinction between a plate and a three-dimensional. When it comes, no, plate has a dimension, third dimension, thickness. What happens to thickness? They forget that thickness has been subsumed. There is no thickness. Thickness, we are studying the behavior only of the middle surface. So they now only stress resultants are considered. So stress resultants are all integral values. So you have to relate the stress resultant. So they are related like this. And you get a new quantity which we call D. D means integrated value of material quantity. So now, so far up to this point, I did not mention the name of finite element or any discretization. This is the analytical derivation. So finite element consists of two parts. One is the basic derivation, which you must be thorough from fundamentals. By the way, this, anybody who will tell, I think there are many in the audience who must have used Mendelian element or something. What is this? Can somebody tell me? K, pi by 6 or pi square by 12?
Shear
Anybody?
correction factor, sir.
Very good. Shear correction factor. Why do we do shear correction factor? Why do you do shear correction factor in Mendelian element?
We want to eliminate the shear locking. So we add shear correction factor.
No, this is not the answer. No. Anybody else? Shear correction factor. Why shear correction factor is used in Mendelian 5 by 6 or pi square by 12?
Sir, it is used to correct the shears, but the shears we are getting, they are not accurate. So to correct it, to means exactly, so we multiply with that 5 by 6.
But why 5 by 6 or why pi square by 12? And how do you know that shears are not correct? I need a more specific answer. See, shear, what is with your displacement field that you have assumed, the shear strain is constant through the thickness. Okay, shear strain becomes independent of Z. Shear strain is constant. You go through it, my shear strain will be constant. dW by dx plus theta. It is of that type. There is no Z. Okay, gamma xz equal to dW by dx or dy plus some theta x or theta y. There is no. So that means it is a rectangle variation. top to bottom, it is a shear strain. Where is this? And therefore multiplied by G will also give you constant shear stress distribution, constant, rectangular like this. This is the vertical axis. Sorry. Yeah, ho gaya. Okay. So this is the vertical axis, Z, and then it will be like this rectangle. But you know from your basic strength of material that shear, the top shear stress must be 0, free surface. Top, bottom also free surface. See, there is no shear stress. And it is parabolic distribution, parabolic. The area of parabola and rectangle, the ratio of that, if you take, that is this 5/6 R. So we have to correct it. We get by a constant rectangular variation, you get more shear energy in the formulation, which has to be corrected by multiplication of a quantity which is less than 1, because parabola gives you less variation. I mean the energy that will give you less energy. So that 5/6, that is why it is less than. This is also less than 1. One was done by on the static consideration. I think this was obtained by somebody on dynamic consideration. Vibration they did and then found out pi square by 12. And this is on consideration of static. But this is done only for isotropic material. For orthotropic, for layered material, it is impossible to find out shear correction factor. Okay, for layered material and for non-isotropic material through thickness, it is impossible. So you have to shear correction factor cannot be found out properly. Okay, so I was emphasizing that up to that part it was analysis. I did not mention about discretization. I did not mention about finite element. Yes, because it was a global analysis, total analysis that we are doing. Okay, so theory is as important. So now only after having done this, I will now graduate to discretization. And what is discretization? Total energy of the plate is also equal to total energy of the plate. Kolo. Total energy of the plate can also be, energy is a scalar quantity, can be summed over all the elements. Pi E is over element, so sum this. So this is the discretization. If you have discretized your body, this is the basic statement. So discretization starts from here. So you can do now your computation on element and sum element 1 to 100, element 1 to 10, element 1 to 200. So this is the statement. So for element equilibrium, now if the total body is in a state of equilibrium, each element also must remain in equilibrium. Therefore, the same relations are holding good for element also. So now I can assume a rectangular element or a quadrilateral element. Now I think, I do not know, I think because I'm sure you have not been covered isoparametric. Isoparametric means I can take non-rectangular elements, or I can take curved elements, side with a curvature, side with a curve. So, but don't worry about it. So I can take only a rectangular element, 4-noded, or I can take a triangular element with 3-noded. It doesn't matter. The formulation is general. So I can discretize now all these basic quantities like Ni, Pi I, Ni theta I, Ni Wi in a normal way. This is the basic. That means if there are n quantities, now I am n. So displacement at any point, W at any point inside can be written in terms of 4 nodal values. Rotation at any point inside this element can be written in terms of these 4 nodal values. So this is the C0 formulation of plate. And I have written here, of course, superscript n, but it can be simple n, Ni only. There is a facility of having different shape functions for different quantities, but we don't use in practice. In practice, we use always same shape function for all the quantities. So it can be Ni Wi, Ni theta I, ni theta yi, etc. Rest of the things are standard for any finite element. So you have to define your n matrix. N matrix is called shape function matrix. That means based upon the assumption within the element, whether the linear variation you are taking, bilinear variation you are taking, quadratic variation you are taking, you can define your shape function n. So n matrix has to be defined. So first quantity that is needed in finite element formulation is n matrix. This is our nodal, but total also. So n matrix you define. And these are the quantities. I now have defined it clearly that this is my nodal displacement vector. Nodal D is nodal displacement vector. So node 1, there are 3 quantities. Node 2